Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, we're going to do another snow scene, and this will probably be the last one I'll do this year. I think you can have too much of a good thing. So this week we're going to be having a go at this lovely little country snow scene with a red postbox. So come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Bockingford Rough. It's £250, nice and thick so I won't need stretching, but any decent watercolour paper will do. My colours are yellow ochre, cobalt blue, any warm red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna and Payne's grey, and some white gouache, and 4 brushes from my range, a 3/4 inch flat, number 12 and number 6 round, and my trusty number 3 rigger. So there's no photo reference today as this is made up from several different references, but of course the drawing template is free to download from my website, link in the description below. Off we go, and I'm carefully painting everything above the wall and fence with clean water, carefully going around the postbox. And a flat brush is perfect for this. Next, with a watery wash of cobalt blue, still using my flat brush, carefully painting around the postbox and also lightening the value towards the bottom. And if you get some streaks in the sky, that's all good. Okay, so now for these trees in the background. I'm painting them all wet in wet as I want lovely soft edges to send them into the distance. And I'm using mixes of burnt sienna, cobalt blue, and then adding in some Payne's grey, letting them all mix and blend on the paper. Try not to fiddle too much, let the paint do its thing, and keep that brush moving. Right, now for the snow, and I'm wetting a few areas first, then dropping in a 50-50 watery mix of Payne's grey and cobalt blue. And here just adding shadows on the underside of these lumps of snow. Okay, so now for the wall, and I'm part wetting some of it. And and then painting in a quite thick consistency of yellow ochre, getting in between all those nooks and crannies. And then dropping in my brown mix from burnt sienna and cobalt blue, and then some Payne's grey. But I'm also trying to vary the consistency from watery to quite thick. Now, don't let this dry, because I'm taking some cling film or saran wrap or whatever you call it in your part of the world, scrunching it up and then placing it over the wet paint of the wall, pressing down firmly and manipulating it to get lots of creases and folds. Then take a couple of heavy books and place them firmly on top. Oh look! Watercolour Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner by Paul Clark. Who would have thought? Then carefully remove the books, slowly lift off the film. Yeah, not bad. You are in the lap of the watercolour gods, but that's quite a nice random subtle texture. Cover up the sky and some extra random texture with a bit of splatting, and you can just lift up with a tissue any stray dots. Next for the fence, and I'm starting off with a nice wet wash of yellow ochre, but then I'm going to be adding in lots of brown colours, brown textures, using a mix of my burnt sienna and cobalt blue, letting them all mix and blend, lots of wet in wet, lots of quick brush strokes. And if you feel confident enough, use your bigger brush, it'll just stop you fiddling too much. So now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break. And what about a glass of vintage post-box ale?
Oh, that's a lovely one.
Okay, so here are a couple of bits of the wall that I missed, so I'm just using all the same techniques again. Okay, so now for the trees, and I'm now using my number 6 brush and this same brown mix, and I'm just getting in these main trunks and branches, trying to keep it nice and simple. And remember, with all branches like this, they'll always taper to a fine point at the end, so it's just a case of lifting your brush off the paper to get that nice fine point. also dropping in wet, I'm trying to get a slightly darker shadow side to the right. Now for my favourite brush for painting these spindly branches, my trusty No. 3 rigger. Just let it spring about and do its own thing. These trees in the distance, just a tiny little bit of detail. Okay, to finish off the trees, I'm using the dry brush technique, using the same colour but a much lighter tint. Then keeping the brush flat to the paper and picking up its texture. And I'm using my No. 12 brush for this. And then just splatting in a little random texture. And exactly the same for all these trees, but I'm also adding a little clean water to soften some of the edges. Then back with my rigger for a few shadows and details. Next, using my number 6 brush and the same brown colour, I'm just putting in the shadows under the snow and beginning to bring out the details on the wall. Now normally I would say don't paint in all the stones, let your eye fill in the rest, but I'm painting a fairly detailed picture this week and the wall plays quite a prominent role.
Are we just smaller versions of a bigger home? Are you the rivers in your veins and mine, the flakes that become snow? And you might believe that everything is broken, fragments of sentences we haven't spoken, but maybe are we just jagged lines across a buried sea? Are the shapes inside a sundisk the same as the arms of trees, and saying we're a shell of what we used to be? Maybe we're smaller. Are we just smaller? And I get lost in finding comfort this time. Fractals all around us, in hopes that I have found us. There's beauty in these broken designs. Now I
Quite a dark shadow here on the bottom edge of the wall.
be fit. Oh, can we exist unfinished? Are we just clouds up in the northern hemisphere, taking up dreams that I've left for, that you've always feared, and you'll get mad at the world.
Let it dry, then just this top section here could go a little bit darker, but keep the washes transparent because you want to see the details underneath.
Safe and sound, and I get lost in finding comfort this time. Fractals all around in hopes that I have found us.
Next, I'm just taking some watery burnt sienna just to warm up a few of the stones to add a bit of contrast to the wall.
Now I know there is nothing to be feared. I know if the miles get long, I'll still see you up the road. Even though this is all known, I'll keep carrying a little. These lines stretch on and on and on. Are we just searching for a little highway map? Are the lines between us?
Next, for these little sapling things growing out the snow, I'm treating very much the same as I did the trees, starting with my number 6 brush and then bringing in the details with my rigger.
Maybe we're smaller. Are we just smaller?
Nice quick flicky strokes with the rigger brush, and I'm also bringing out some of the grasses with some yellow ochre. Okay, so now for the post box, which you can paint in any bright red. Now, the official colour of all boxes painted across the UK have to be in British Standard 538 BS 381C, which is quite interesting, said no one ever, except for the ones out of commission, which have to be painted in black. Now, this is interesting, that there is a Royal Mail postbox standing within half a mile of 98% of the population. In fact, we have one at the top of our lane, which I've never seen anyone use. And this is known as a lamp box, as opposed to the more familiar pillar box, which you tend to see more in towns. So when that's dry, I'm painting the shadow side with some alizarin crimson and a few details on the front of the box. So a very light Payne's grey here for the soft shadows, and then a much stronger consistency Payne's grey for the slot for the letters. Payne's grey again here for the post. And a few little details here. It's probably giving you the collection times. And here is the Royal Mail logo. And up here it should say Post Office, but I'm just going to blag it with a few squiggles. But I am painting in the ER insignia for Queen Elizabeth, as all boxes will have the mark of the monarch reigning at the time that it was installed, going back to George VI. So you can imagine that most boxes in the UK will have the late Queen's insignia. Final touches, I'm using a creamy coloured pastel pencil for a few of these light coloured grasses. And then a white pastel pencil for a few little highlights here and there. And gently rubbing with my finger will give a nice soft blend. And finally, some gooey white gouache straight from the tube for some lovely little flicks of snow here and there. there we go, all done, and this one in just under 3 hours. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. Just let those watercolours flow and enjoy the experience. And before I go, I would just like to say a very, very big thank you to all of you who've been following my channel over the years. I really do appreciate it. Thanks to all of you who've left comments, liked the videos and just supported me. It is much, much appreciated. And of course, all of you who've left a tip. I really do thank you for that. So all that's left of me to say is a very happy Christmas to all of you who celebrate Christmas. Have a great one. And of course, I look forward to seeing you next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.